Hey, everybody, welcome to Impact Marriage. We are Nick and Leslie Edwards, and we are so excited to be joining you this week.
Another week, another podcast. It's been a great week. We got to spend business trips together. You had business in Austin. I did as well. We were able to combine those trips, make it a business trip, make it a marriage trip. Always a recommendation. Anytime that you can travel with your spouse, make sure that you did that. If you don't follow us on social media, make sure that you follow us on Facebook, on Instagram, on TikTok, all those, as well as here on YouTube, because we talked about Reach International Outfitters.
Yeah.
And doing scratch off, and we actually went to the Museum
of Ice Cream. That was really
Austin.
fun. So we had a really good time. Just something neat that we talked about because couples get stuck. I don't know what to do. What do you want to do? What do you want to do? It just
So great.
It pushes you out of your comfort zone. It was something we would have never picked to do probably for ourselves.
Nope.
But it was fun, and just learning about each other through that experience. It was a really neat experience.
And I got to eat ice cream.
And you got to eat lots of ice cream. That was really fun.
Yeah, we had a great time.
Yeah.
It really is helping you to get outside of what you normally do, to go do something else. And it gives you some budget, it gives you some ideas. Great way to do it. And I really enjoyed it.
It was a great way to just add another layer to your date night and just the trip that we were on. It was a really great idea.
Yeah. All right. So what was your favorite thing about the ice cream museum?
Oh, gosh. Oh, that's okay. So we did get to play on the playground like we were a little kid. Like I acted like I was a little kid and climbed up the stairway and did a slide. So I guess it was going back to that, just kind of playing in that.
I'll make sure I put some pictures on.
Oh, you're going to show? Yes.
Yeah. So it really was a great time. I really enjoy it. I love when we travel. Austin's one of our favorite places.
Yes.
Really love traveling anywhere we go, but we've made a lot of trips to Austin. It's been a lot of great memories there.
It was fun being able to combine, like you had work that you were doing, I had work. It was just fun that we were able to be able to do that together. It was really great.
All right. So what's on the topic today?
So we're going to talk about balance, or the misconception of balance, and all the things that come with that. Because what we've realized in this is we have older children, and even when you have younger children, and when you have things, and you have jobs, and you both have careers, and you want to make the best of everything. But I hear from so many couples, I feel like I'm pulled in every direction. So what does that mean? What does that look like?
So difficult.
It is extremely difficult.
Well, it was difficult for us. Maybe for you. None of y'all have these problems. We would love to hear any suggestions from you on how do you have work, life, family, marriage balance, and how do you make sure that the most important things stay the most important things?
That's really what it was. Is how do you make sure that what your priorities, you have to know what your priorities are.
Absolutely.
And how do you make sure within your time, because you do have to do all the things that, there are some things that you need to say no to, some things you say yes to, but just kind of talking through what that looks like practically in your marriage.
And this is something we've struggled with.
Yeah.
We both struggle with it, and just going, I feel like you work too much then, and you feel like I work too much. We feel like maybe I don't think we've ever said we've spent too much time together. That's not been the problem. But being able to have balance. And so one of the greatest things that when I was in March of 2022, we were in Orlando. I was going through Maxwell Conference, and there was this prayer morning, and it was me, and there's 5,000 people at this conference. You're going to Disney.
I went to Disney.
And so, but one of the mornings, there's me and 120 people in there with John Maxwell, and he just like spews wisdom. Every time he talks, just wisdom coming out. And I think that's a couple things. That's praying James 1:5. If any of you lacks wisdom, ask of God who gives generously. Understanding Proverbs, that God tells us how to be wise. And John just lives those things out and teaches them so great. But there's this Q&A session. This woman stands up and she goes, John, as a mom, as an entrepreneur, as a wife, as a believer, how do I have balance in my life?
And it's a great question.
It's a great
question that I would imagine many people
struggle with, and really asking, how do I really balance it all out? And here's what John said. He said, balance is a lie. It's a myth and it's a lie. It's never reality. You can never have balance. And what he said is you need to be fully in where you're fully in.
Say that again.
You need to be fully in where you're fully in.
Fully in. So balance is a lie.
Balance is a lie.
Balance as we think of balance doesn't exist.
Yeah, you can't have everything.
Equal time. There's no way you can take, I have 24 hours in a day, so I'm going to divide it up equally into part. It's not, it's this ebb and flow of what needs your attention, what is a priority to you.
And what's worth your attention.
Yeah, that's good. But be fully in when you're in. I also think there's the misconception that it's only couples that are both have careers or both work outside the house
that's
that do
definitely
this.
a myth of it and a lie.
And that's not true, because I know a lot of stay-at-home moms and they struggle with the same concept of balance. So it really does go across all things. It's about what are your priorities and what are you wanting to do. And
so balance is a lie, but the reality is, and the antidote for that lie is priorities. And choosing the things that matter most. Where we get in trouble is when we don't know what matters most.
Yeah.
And when I put anything above you, it's adultery.
Yeah. We've talked about that several times.
When I put anything above God, it's idolatry. And so understanding the principle that there has to be priorities and you have to know what those priorities are. And every time that you don't know what to do, you are always making a decision.
That's a good point.
An indecision is a decision. And so when we come to a decision, we are always saying yes or no, yes or no. And every time you say yes, you are saying no to something else. So how do you think that's played out in our marriage, maybe good or bad?
So I kind of automatically a way that I think about that I have struggled with is by nature, I'm a people pleaser. We have talked about this. I get that there are some things that works really well for, and there's some things that it doesn't work well for. And I would say in looking at our time, that this is an area that we have struggled in, is that I want to people please. So it is really hard for me to say no to certain things because I feel like, I should say yes to everyone. But in saying yes to certain things, that has meant that I have said no to our family for certain things. And that has been hurtful, and that's been some issues.
It's a hard struggle.
It is.
To know what those things are and what's the most important thing.
The things I was saying yes to weren't bad things.
That's the hard thing right there.
It wasn't a bad thing. During my time, I would say probably when I was an assistant principal in a school system, in a high school, and working lots of hours late at night and having events, and we had young kids at that point, that being able to balance all of those things together where you felt like I was making you a priority over my work, and work being called to work different hours, I would say that was really a time that we learned to manage that. And I will never forget the thing that made me realize it was about priorities and not just time. I remember we were sitting in the game room at the house. I don't remember if you remember this conversation.
Okay, I'm not sure where this story is going, but go for it.
But we were sitting and we had an argument about it because we were kind of looking at, hey, I have to work 3 nights this week, and there's a lot of people that are working late, and you were able to finally communicate to me in a way that I understood that and it wasn't about the hours, it was about my mindset behind the hours. So let me clarify that. It wasn't just because I was working in that. It was my mindset in some of those things. You said, when you do this, it makes me not feel like a priority to you. It makes me feel like you're picking this over me, which really allowed me to go, okay, I can understand what the conflict in that is.
Yeah, and so I felt like you were cheating on me. I mean, I'm not saying I'm saying it hard like that, and
not
I don't want
making you a priority.
I don't want to downplay anything that anybody else has ever gone through or try to make it sound like that. But that's what really at the heart. You're choosing someone or something over me, and I know I've done the same thing to you at different times, and just understanding how important it is that God told us to be together, that the two become one, and He says that we are to worship the Lord our God with all our heart, with all our soul, with all our mind. That we're that He has to be the priority in all that we do, the center of all of it. And then we are to love our spouse. And marriage is this great, beautiful, incredible picture of how God loved us, and that Jesus is this bride, and the church is his or Jesus is the bridegroom, and the church is his bride, and He's going to come in return for His bride, and that nothing shall separate this.
So for me, that's kind of where it was a turning point, is realizing that it's about priorities, and it's not that I didn't still work extra hours, we reframed and rethought how we were thinking through those things and what that meant to us. And
yeah. So,
now, it didn't completely solve all our problems, let's be totally honest.
But what we did is we had to have a hard conversation.
Yeah.
And that led to more hard conversations and more hard conversations, and that just continued to go.
Which led to what we've kind of talked about. It at the end of the day, it's not about you're spending time for this or you're doing this. I know I talk to women, they're like, he's always on his video games or he's always playing golf. It's not in and of itself about those things. Those are symptoms of the priorities that you're making. It's not that you're upset.
You're right.
And that's couples want to fight. You're playing video games. You're playing video games all the time. You're wanting to go golf. You're wanting to do this. You're always wanting to hang out with your girlfriends. You're wanting to. It's not about those things at the heart of the matter. And if you continue to fight about the time aspect of it, you're not getting to the heart of.
Which is really the choice of a priority.
That's exactly right. You are not making me a priority over this. I feel like I need more from you that you're not giving me because you are spending your time doing that.
Yeah, it's really good. So because you talked about us being young and with kids, a couple weeks ago I had a young guy, he's maybe 30. They have 2 under 5, just had another baby. And he said, my wife wanted to go have coffee with a friend and I had the kids for 2 hours. And I realized I never want to do that again. Shame on you, man.
Yeah.
Shame on you. And we've talked about this, that I need to be able to give to you in those times, but you're still dad. And there's nothing that is more nurturing than the heart of a mom. That God's wired us differently to be able to provide differently for our family, but you're still dad. Yeah. And you are still to love and to provide and to care for your kids. And they need to look forward to being with you.
Yeah.
And you need to love and honor your wife in such a way that she can go have coffee with friends.
Yeah,
or,
absolutely.
Or more than that.
Yeah.
Whatever that looks like.
Absolutely.
Because that's a way to love.
Yeah, absolutely.
Is to be able to give. So one of the things that John Maxwell talks about during that time is that myth is a lie. And he said,
balance.
The balance.
Balance is a myth.
Oh my gosh.
Myth is a lie. That is a true statement as well. Balance is a myth.
That balance is a lie. Balance is this myth. And the lady followed up and said, so what do you do?
That's the great question. Because so what?
So what do I do? Okay, true.
Oh, I'm with you here, Maxwell.
What I do. And so I want to show you this. I'm going to see if I can switch over to our camera over here and makes this work. So here is what he said. He said every month we have to make our monthly calendar. And before my secretary gets to put anything on my calendar a month or 2 months or 3 months out, we have family block. This is family. This is priority. This is breakfast with my wife. It does not get interrupted. I choose the things that go on my calendar as the priority. And then everything else can get filled in.
Gotcha. That's smart.
I have to know what the priorities are. And I have to choose my calendar. My calendar doesn't get to tell me what to do.
Yeah. That's a great way to look at it is you've got to, what are your priorities? These are the things that we're going to prioritize. One of the things we've talked about is Wednesdays. For
Wednesday day nights.
Wednesdays is our block off, and that's our time and work. I know there's been people that have tried to put work calendar, work meetings where we have late meetings, and it became a joke, and it was actually a great thing.
So proud of you for this.
For me being a people pleaser wanting to do this, they said, hey, I know you don't like Wednesday meetings. I know Wednesdays are date nights. And I thought, I finally
communicated something to these people.
And not that it took away from my work, because they weren't upset about it. They said, hey, let's find a time Thursday. Let's find a time during the day Wednesday, or let's find a time.
So good.
And it's not like I'm leaving early. I don't want to leave early. It's not anything like that. But I just thought we have made that such a priority, even to our girls. Our girls always know. And they always say, Wednesday's date night, Wednesday's date night.
When are y'all going? When will y'all be back? Because I need to go to church and I need to ride and all those things. But they knew nothing was going to get in that place.
So that's a really great way to do it, where you're making a priority of it, because that opens up that conversation. Hey, we haven't had time for us in a month. Can we put date
put it on
night
the
on
calendar.
here? Can we put time? Yeah, absolutely.
And nothing, unless the world is coming to an end, nothing needs to violate that time.
Yeah.
Yeah,
really
absolutely. Good. The other thing is just, man, Sundays are marked off. Those are for worship. Those are our days up before God, that I have my block of time in the morning. You have your block of time in the morning. But Sundays is for worshiping together.
Yeah.
And that God's going to not just have a day of our life. He's going to be the priority of our life.
Yeah.
And so that was one of the things that we talked about is I want to give you this illustration. And hopefully this works over here and it communicates
Yeah. I think
correctly.
this is really good.
So we think this is our life. And we go, okay, well, I just need to make sure that God or faith is in the middle of my life, right?
Everything that I do. It's the center of what you do.
Yeah. So then you have your marriage, you have work, you have kids, you have finances, you have all the other family
There is
family
playtime
stuff.
that's in there.
You have all the extra stuff, right?
Yeah.
The problem with this is when life starts going fast, everything else starts spinning off.
Yeah. It's like an old merry-go-round, right? When you're
Yeah.
like trying to hold on that everything
that's
is
a Gen X
falling
joke
off.
right there,
It is
right?
a Gen X. We at one of the conference, they asked about that. And they're like, what's your last memory of playing? And there were so many of us that were my age and older. They were like, that fun merry-go-round.
That threw people off.
That threw people off.
Was
yeah.
about 148
But
degrees during the
that's the
summer.
same concept of it. It's
Absolutely.
spinning, and you can't hold on to everything. Everything is going to fly off the plate.
Everything goes on. So we have to look at it a little bit differently. And the way we do that is we still have God. Oh, undo.
Not another circle.
Yep. So we still have God and our faith, right?
Right.
But that is the encompassing of all of our life.
That's what the whole
And
thing
within
is.
inside there is work, marriage, family, finances, extra, kids, all those other
Yeah.
things. And as life goes fast and all these things get jumbled up, our faith encompasses,
Yeah.
protects, and creates the priorities for all other things.
That's really good. That it keeps it together. God, your faith, your priority, your main priority is there.
So not only is it the foundation, but it's the protection,
Yeah.
the guardian of all other things.
Yeah. I like talking about it in terms of building a calendar and making it central. Like it's something that you like. I think there's times that we have like a kind of weekly calendar meeting. Hey, what do we have going on this week? What do we need to know about? What do you have nights this week? Like, I feel like our life is crazier now than it has been in other times. But telling what's on our calendar is different than telling our calendar what we want to prioritize.
That's right.
Like,
We put things on the calendar. The calendar doesn't dictate us.
correct. That we've got to be intentional.
And that's where we get in trouble.
Yeah, absolutely. Is we don't block time. And it's kind of like your finances. If you're not making a budget, you're going to get in trouble. You're going to spend more than you make if you're not making a budget. And it's the same thing with your time. If you're not chunking your time and saying, this is what I'm going to do. This is the time that I want for this. I'm going to invest in my kids at this time. I'm going to invest in my family at this time. Your time's going to run out.
Absolutely.
And you're going to look back and be like, I have no idea what I spent all my time on. It works the same way with your finances. And
Yeah, absolutely.
that's a good.
So the other thing I want to tell people, show people is this, that we think that this is our life, right?
Yep.
We think that balance means going like this.
Yep.
And if I can just walk a tightrope,
Yeah.
and remember going to Barnum Bailey Circus and walking across the tightrope, and they're up way up in the ceilings, up in the rafters, and walking across this wire. And what they realize is if they put their hands out, they have balance, right?
Yeah.
Well, that's what we think we need to do is just a little bit here, a little bit there.
Yeah.
And we bounce back and forth between all the different things in life, but we're never fully present anywhere.
We're just exhausted
We're
and not
just
winning anywhere.
exhausted. And what they realize is if they have these long poles,
The longer the pole.
10, 20 feet
Yeah,
long,
that's true.
and they're walking across. So what does that look like for us? It means that we need to have.
Who knew that the circus would come in handy
I
as
know.
an illustration? I like that.
But this is also balance.
Absolutely.
And what I mean is be fully in here, Be fully in here.
It's really good.
Instead of always, as soon as you get somewhere, you're thinking about the next.
Which is really where I would say my biggest struggle was when we had the discussions about when I was working is I would try to give you just enough time to satisfy you and then give just enough time to work that I could. That's a great, just enough is not what really is. Just
enough is never where greatness happens.
It leaves everything unsatisfied.
When you just do enough, nothing great ever happens.
That's so true.
But you can be, if this is your marriage and this is work, be fully great here and be fully great here. And don't think you have to choose between one or the other.
That's so good. It's not a list. It's not a
1, 2, 3. It's everything is encompassed by my faith. Yeah. Everything is protected by my faith. And the next layer within that is my marriage.
Yeah.
And those two things are the priorities of everything. Yeah. And if they violate those two things, they're automatically out.
Yeah.
Because really God's going to protect our finances. He's going to protect our jobs. He's going to protect all those things when we make sure that He is the first. And one of the things recently heard is that, God is a God of principles. And so the way God works is the reason He accepted Cain's offering and not Abel's was because Abel brought some and Cain brought the first. And God cannot lie. And He said, I have to be first, because if God puts anything above Himself, He's actually worshiping something else.
Yeah.
Nothing can be higher than God for God. So God can't worship or put anything above Himself. So when He says, I have to be first, it's part of His character and part of His nature. And He's saying, when you make me first, I will bless. When you make me first and you make me the priority of all that you do, I will do abundantly more. And that's what we want to see. We want to see God do abundantly more in us and through us because we choose to make God the priority of all that we do.
Yeah. And I think it has to be communicated between couples have to talk about it and without getting defensive about it. Hey, that was my struggle when we talked about my job too, is I would shut down the conversation so much because I would immediately get defensive.
Those were years in the past, and you've got so much better than that. And both of us still struggle with time allotments and those kind of things. So we don't have this figured out.
But it's a combination of, and it also goes to quality time is one of my love languages.
Absolutely.
And so that looks a little bit different for me than it does for you. And just learning and growing but just being able to have conversations about it without it being defensive. Hey, if your spouse comes and says, hey, I don't feel like you're making us a priority, or I feel like we should have more time together, don't get defensive about it. Just talk through it. What does that look like? What does that mean? Ask more questions. I think that's one of the things that you've been really, really good at as we've grown in our communication is asking me more questions. Okay, I hear you saying this. What does that mean? What does that look like? And I don't always have the answers. And sometimes I get frustrated, but it's about asking those questions.
When we ask better questions, we get better answers.
Yeah, absolutely. So what does it look like for you and your spouse to make priorities? Because it's not the same time. Like we're at work 40 hours a week, and then we have outside activities. So I would say the time that we spend with each other doesn't match the time that you have at work. So it's not about the quantity of time. It's about the quality that you're spending, which is exactly what you talked about on this. It's being fully in when you're there.
That's right.
So that your spouse gets every single thing of you during that time.
On date night, you're not responding to work emails.
Absolutely.
Yeah, but I just got to take care of this real quick. Hang on 1 second, right?
Yeah.
You went, well, are you here or are you there?
Yeah. And we've even trained our girls. Our girls were terrible about texting us. When are you going to be home? When are you going to be home? And finally, unless the house is burning down or someone is bleeding,
we'll be home in plenty of time to take you to church.
Yeah. So just making priorities about it. Yeah. That when you're there, you're fully there. And it's really good. I like that.
So we know this is a hard topic, and that's why we wanted to really put it out there. We struggle with it. We're working through it. We want to be better. We know better is always better.
Yep.
But choose the priority of your life. Choose the priority of your marriage. Choose your faith first. Choose the things of God as priority in your life. Allow this to be the priority of everything. That if you're hurting, I'm hurting. If you're rejoicing, I'm rejoicing. that there's nothing that you experience that I don't experience with you because we're in it together.
Yeah, absolutely.
And so our calendar is united, our finances are united, our conversations are united around the things of God so that we can be all that God has called us to be, to walk in faith, to seek first the kingdom of God and his righteousness above all everything else, and see what he does with it.
Yeah, it's very good.
Thank you so much for joining us again this week. We're grateful for you. Love to hear your comments. Love to hear your thoughts. Just know we're in it with you. So this week was about the priority of our time. Next week's going to be a priority of our finances. Yeah. Things that people argue about, right? We really only have two assets in our life, and that's time and finances, and how we prioritize those things and really dictate and decide who we will be in the days ahead.
Absolutely. With our time, with our finances, we can always be better.
Absolutely.
Because better is always better.
Have a great day.